Hello, my name is Ali, and in this video we're just going to be covering the node damage calculation system. So what we're going to do is we have an enemy in the scene right now which has a lot of health, and if we attack it now we are doing 1 damage at a time, and so that's how much damage we do. But of course we want to change that and we want to do a bit more damage than 1. So it's still attacking me here, so I'm just going to turn it off for now. So if we go into our main editor, let's add a new damage type, and we'll do that by going to damage definitions. I'll make a new one called, let's say, fire damage. Let's make the color of it red. We can also turn on our floating combat text, and that way we can just distinguish between different types of damage being dealt. And finally, let's make our enemy do some... Actually, no, we'll give our player a weapon. So we'll say fire weapon. Just give it an icon. And let's say it does 10 fire damage and 5 physical. And we'll make sure our player starts with that weapon by going to starting items, starting equipped items, weapon, fire weapon. Okay. So let's just respawn that enemy back into the game. And move it into the view. And just to be sure, make sure our player starts on the demo scene here. Right. And let's just go back to our intro and make a new character. Right, so let's go, before we create that, let's go to our node editor and look at what we currently have. So right now we have this check that if the attacker's strength is greater than the defender's strength, by using this in comparison node here, then we're going to add the strength total of our attacker to our physical damage. We're going to delete all of that for now, and we're going to start again from scratch. So if we create this character, we do have our pet here, but we're going to just remove our pet for now. If I attack this now, you see we do 10 fire damage and 5 physical damage each time. We're going to turn this enemy off for now. So if we go back here to our combat damage, or we can just say real quick, let's do something simple. So let's use our add int node, and we're just going to add 10 damage to our physical damage. So if we open up variables here, we can add in our physical damage, and our target is the physical because we want to add something to our physical damage, and we're just going to add 10. And if we hit save and we enable that character now and attack it, now we do 15 physical damage. Right. So you can see just by adding that node there, we're adding 10 damage to the physical, so we go from 5 physical to 5 physical to 15 physical. But we don't want to use just a value of 10. Let's instead add our player's strength. So what we can do is we can get our attacker, and also we can just check if it's the player. So we can use the isPlayer check. So anytime the player attacks, we're going to add this value. So what we're doing here, so the first thing we're doing is checking, is our attacker the player? If it is the player, then we're going to add 10 damage to the physical damage. Because if you saw just then, I was losing a lot more health every time, because the enemy as well was also adding 10 damage to their physical attack. And we can even say here, just for explanation's sake, if it's not the player, we can decrease the damage by 1. And that means I'll never take any damage from the AI. And here we're still adding 10 damage for now. So let's enable this enemy. Oops, there we go. See, now I'm not taking any damage because it's removing 1 damage from the damage it's trying to do. If I remove the link here, suddenly I'll start taking 1 damage again. So you can see also that these nodes are quite live, as in any changes you make on them will affect the game straight away. So if I attack this now, I'm doing 15 damage, whereas the enemy is only doing 1 damage, which is reduced by 1 to 0. And changes to 15, and of course now I do 20 damage, etc. Okay, but let's change this. Instead of doing 15, adding 15, let's add the player's strength. So you can go to attribute total, and you could also use the player attribute total, but I'm going to show you how to do it this way. So if I attack the enemy, I am the attacker. So we're going to say, if it is a player, let's add the strength of the attacker, which in this case will be the player. And if we check our stats, we have 10 strength. So now every time I attack, I'll be doing plus 10 damage. And that's not because I've typed in 10 now, it's because the actual strength of my player is 10. I could change this to vitality, and again it will do 10 extra damage because my vitality is also 10. But what we could do is we could also, instead of adding it to the physical damage, why not add it to the fire damage? And you can see now you can get some very interesting behavior from this node system, because now we can have attributes that represent your fire damage, attributes that represent your physical damage, and have them interacting in different ways. So if we look at the definition of this enemy real quick, we can see the enemy has 10 strength, dexterity, intelligence, and vitality. We can also use those values to affect how things behave. So if we actually just let's delete this enemy, and let's change the strength here to 5, and then we're going to spawn it to the scene and move it into the view. So now this enemy here has 5 strength, dexterity, intelligence, and vitality. So let's say if the player is attacking, let's delete this actually. So we'll start again. So I'll show another example. So what we're going to do now, let's say the player has 10 strength, which she does, and the enemy has 5 strength. Let's reduce the damage that the enemy will take by his strength. So what we're going to do is, hold on, let's do it the other way around. Let's increase it by strength. So we're going to use add in value. This is simply because we don't have a subtract in value yet, which I need to add into the next update as a small little addition. But what we can do is we'll create 2 of these. Add in value. And we'll say, oops, sorry, attribute total. So we could just say, for example, if it's the attacker, we want to add their strength to the physical damage. And actually, let's not use that, let's use divide in value. And if it's the defender, oops, attribute total, we can divide it by the dexterity, for example. So first thing we do is we add the attacker strength to physical damage, so that will go from 5 physical damage to 15 when we add the player strength, which is 10. And then we want to divide that by the defender's dexterity. So these are 2 separate calculations. The first calculation is adding the attacker strength to the physical damage, and the second calculation is dividing the physical damage dealt by the defender's dexterity. And And of course that dexterity could be named like physical defense, and so it's dividing this value, which is now 15, by 5, so it should deal 3 damage. And then of course we just have to link these so it flows up until the success point. So now if I attack this enemy, it should do 3 physical damage. And once again, that's because we have 5 physical damage initially, we add 10 to get 15, and then we're dividing it by 3. We're dividing it by 5, which is the enemy's dexterity, like so. And so essentially this is how you can create some more interesting combat calculations. And of course you can add your own int variables. So if we add a new one, and let's call this value A, which starts at 0. And then, for example, we could add a bunch of values to this. So let's add just physical damage. The way I'm doing it here is slightly messy, but we're adding physical damage to both of these. So right now these nodes aren't in the actual chain, so they're not going to be processed. So of course we need to link there first, or something. But instead, let's start again somewhat. I still want to use this whole dividing example. What we can do is we can add the physical damage to value A. We can also add the fire damage to value A. And so that would be, right now, it would be 5 plus 10, which is 15. And then we could do like a comparison and say if value A is greater than 10, then let's add let's add 100 to our physical damage. So in this case, when we try this now, it's going to be true. So we should end up doing like, ooh, hold on, maybe not. Oh, we didn't link our first node to it. There we go. So there we go, 105 damage. Of course that applied to both of us, so my characters died there. But yeah, so we did 105 damage. Or we can say if it's greater than 50, then add 100. And now it's not going to add 100. And oh, there I added 100. But essentially you can see that with this new node system, you can take into account the physical damage that's being dealt, the fire damage that's being dealt. You can take into account the attacker, you can take into account the defender. And by using some of the new nodes like attribute total, statistic total, and checking whether or not they're a player, checking if they're an enemy, even things such as if the player's using an offhand, what type of weapon they have in an offhand, their reputation, you can create like a whole bunch of interesting calculations in there. So that is an overview of some of the things you can do with the new combat system and calculations. If you want more detailed examples, just drop a message on the forum and I can try and show you like a node setup of different kind of calculations. For example, if you want to implement accuracy and evasion, that sort of thing, it's totally possible now with the new system that we've added. So you can take into account the attacker's accuracy against the defender's evasion, and that's how you can start to use then these evade and missed nodes. So for example, you can say if the physical damage and the fire damage, which is now value A, is not greater than 50, then they're just going to automatically evade it or automatically miss it, sort of thing. And obviously a missed or evaded attack means it does 0 damage. So hopefully that's been useful. If there's any more questions, again, just drop a comment or leave a message on the forums. Have a nice day.